Hi, it's Laurie and Jennie, and we're here to talk about those of you that were born at the first quarter phase of the moon.
Mhm.
So, what is the first quarter phase of the moon astronomically, Jennie?
Well, first of all, that's that wonderful time when you look up in the sky and you see the moon split evenly. Half its face is dark, half its face is light. Um, you're going to be able to look up at sometime around noon is when it's going to rise, and it'll be visible until about midnight. So you really will get a good opportunity to see it. The sky's getting pretty light at this point when you see that in the evening with that much moon.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So, how do I know if I was born at the first quarter phase?
If you're someone who's had a lot of crises in your life.
You sound like you know exactly what you're talking about. Okay, so what we've got set up here so that you can figure out if you were born at the first quarter moon, we've just randomly picked 0 degrees Aries as the starting point. Always consider that when you're looking at the planets, you're looking counterclockwise.
Mhm.
And what you're going to think about is find where your sun is and move forward between 90 and 135 degrees ahead of the sun. Now, what you need to know is that there are 30 degrees in each sign. And with that information, you can figure this out fairly easily. Um, so if the sun was at 0 Aries, it would be at the first quarter phase anywhere between 90 degrees, which would start, let me make that go away, 30, 30, 60, 90. 90 degrees would be 0 degrees of Cancer.
Yeah,
And then to 135 would be
it's about 15 Leo.
15 Leo. So somewhere in that range.
Oh yeah, I like
Anywhere within that range, you are going to have been born at the first quarter phase of the moon. So
Mhm.
look at that, find out, and if you were born at that first quarter phase, what does that tell us about you and your personality?
Yeah. Well, I mean, just by looking up in the sky and seeing that moon with a split face, you can probably pretty quickly glean this is something where there's going to be tension because you're dealing with two very different looking things. And that is what we're going to see with a first quarter square. This is a life that is marked with some crisis and some struggle, and usually quite a bit of growth, like really big function focus on growth.
Yeah.
So it's that I always like to think about, I don't know, those of you listening know much about wine, but it's the grapes, the vines that really struggle to grow that make the best wine. So I really
Oh,
love that
that's
image because
beautiful.
it's those ones on the rocky soil where they've just like struggled and stressed and they just make fantastic wine. So just if you're born during this time, hold that image in your mind because that is something that you're
Yeah.
going to need to consider when you're going through some of those struggles.
Yeah.
So
I always think, yeah, I always think of the people born at the first quarter phase as being the workers.
mhm.
You know, they have to work so damn hard, people born at that first quarter phase.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, something to consider is that part of this is the signs. If you're in a first quarter phase,
Right.
like your signs of your sun or your moon are going to be very different, most likely. I mean,
Most likely.
that's,
Yeah.
well, that's a different video. But anyway,
Right.
but most likely they're going to be really different. So you're really somebody who's going to be working to honor two very different energies. And the task is around honoring both, not cutting off one for the other. So it
Right.
involves a lot of self-awareness. It
Yeah.
involves some self-knowledge. And it's a lot of times these are people just like get cracking, like you said, who roll up their
Yeah.
sleeves and they're just working,
Yeah.
to make something happen.
Right.
And that's kind of the overall orientation.
Yeah, it's about building. If you think of it in terms of the plant cycle, this is when the plant is really growing its strong stalk and it's really developing the strength
Yeah.
that it needs. And I often think of these phases as relating to past lifetimes. If we have, rather than just many past lifetimes, if we think of ourselves as having series of lifetimes related to the moon phases, this would be the third, the third lifetime in the cycle, and the lifetime where you really are building and developing the full process that
Yeah.
will take you through.
Yeah, I think a great metaphor for this one too, like, is the idea of building. So the
Yeah.
first half of the whole cycle is building. So in this case, you
Right.
laid the foundation, you've got the basic bones of the house up, but now you're really starting to get the structural piece. You're making sure that the framing's in place. Maybe you're starting to put on that second story. But when you're looking at it, it's kind of a framework. It's a skeleton. It's not a finished home. It's really in that building phase. So that's something to think about. So there's a lot of work involved, right, in making that happen. There's, you got to go get the materials, you've got to have the right people to do it. There's a lot of energy going into it, and that's what we're seeing. And sometimes people with this, that they're just the ones, the go-getters, going
Yeah.
in and
Yeah.
making things happen. So
They are the workers. They're definitely the workers. And, another thing that I want to just throw in here is that, similar to our birthdays, when the sun is conjunct the sun in our chart each year, and we kind of resonate with that time of year and that period of time, we really resonate with the phase that we're born during. So the next time, pay attention. On the new moon, a week after the new moon will be the first quarter phase. So go out, stand out there and look at that moon. You will really resonate with the energy in the sky that night.
yeah, that's really
Yeah.
nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
So do we have anything else you
I
want to add?
I think that about wraps it up. Get
Mhm.
out there and get back to work, because that's what
Yeah.
you do in this lifetime, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think the only cautionary tale I think with that first quarter moon is that you may become so comfortable with conflict that you just sort of think that there always should be conflict, and that's not necessarily true. So the question here is always going to be, you're climbing a mountain, but which mountain? So choose wisely. You don't have to. Everything doesn't have to be a battle. It's about focusing your attention in the right way, right?
Right. And it's about growth. The first
Yeah.
quarter moon and the last quarter moon are very different.
Mhm.
This phase is you are growing. So yeah, you're building something. You're not breaking something down. This is a life of building.
Yeah.
So keep that in mind. That's
Great.
what you're about. You're building. All
Glad you
right.
brought that up. That's a great distinction.
Yeah.
So
Oh, yeah.
awesome.
It's really important. And I see that a lot. People look at their charts and they see, there's a square on each side, but they're very, very different.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So let's wrap it up. Ta-ta,
Okay.
everyone.